G'day reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Welcome to Gallery Aquatica TV. Today we're at Gallery Aquatica Wynnum and we're going to be showing you some tips and tricks on maintaining your reef aquarium. Now we're going to be using the display tank here as an example, and we're going to show you 3 secret tips on how to maintain a beautiful reef aquarium. We've had an absolutely huge week here at Gallery Aquatica, and when we have a particularly busy week with sales, that does translate to dirty aquariums. It means when we're busy with customers, it means we don't have the time to do little bits and pieces on the tank that we would otherwise do. One of the things that we do try and do throughout the week is just quickly go over the glass with a magnet cleaner to ensure that there is minimal algae. Now, we're not open today, it's a non-trading day, and I've walked in and seen the tank like this, and it is really quite horrendous. So the first thing we're going to do in the maintenance of this tank today is we're going to give it a good algae clean. Now, you might wonder where the secret tip could possibly be when it comes to cleaning the algae off your glass. Well, I'm going to show you, but first I'm going to go over the bulk of the glass with our magnet cleaner, and then I'll show you a secret tip that will really improve the look of your tank when you're doing the algae. So there you go, we've done the bulk of the algae on the glass with our magnetic algae cleaner. But really the trick when it comes to using these is to look at the tank from a variety of angles. And so what I mean by that is that if you're looking straight onto the tank, it can be a bit difficult to see the algae in certain places, and you end up doing a bit of a hit and miss job. So what I like to do is, first of all, I'll get down low, and straight away I've seen some bits that I've missed up the top, and I mean that makes sense from the angle, but also down low here, and I can see I've been a little bit streaky, but it allows me to go right to the bottom without missing any parts. Now I've missed a big bit here. So the angle that you look at the tank when you're doing the algae is certainly a bit of a tip, and I also like, especially with this peninsula tank, but to look through from this panel to the panel on the end, and from this panel to the panel around the other side, so that you can actually see the internal side, and it allows you to see some bits that you would otherwise miss. So I'll do that from over here. And in some ways, it might sound like a bit of an obvious tip. However, it really amazes me how often when we have new staff or people that are new with their reef tank, that they'll do the algae, but they'll miss around the bottom and the top and the corners and little patches, and it's just because they're not careful in looking at the glass from different angles to ensure that they've got every little bit. Now the next tip that we're going to be looking at is to do with the substrate, and this one makes a huge difference to the look of your tank. I think one of the parts of maintaining a beautiful reef tank that is often neglected is the substrate, and that can be in a lot of situations because it can be difficult to access, especially in deep tanks. But having the substrate relatively clean and certainly with minimal debris on the sand makes a big difference to the look of the tank. And something that I've definitely neglected with this tank is picking up the debris. So today I'm going to go through, I'm going to pick up as much as I possibly can, and I'll just give the sand a little bit of a swish around, and hopefully just sort of get rid of some of the slight bits of algae and discoloration on the sand. But really what we'll be hoping to have is a nice clean white sand, and free of the bulk of the bits and pieces that are in the tank. So I've got just a long-handled gripper, and I'm going to use this little cup, and I'm just going to pick the pieces up and deposit them in this, and I'm just going to go for as long as I can handle doing it and try and get the bulk of it out of the tank. So there's lots of little shells. So I reckon that's a cockle, someone feeding the angel, I guess. There's lots of little bits of rocks and broken off bits of corals. And there's so much in this tank. And this tank is particularly challenging because at the moment we've got all these dendronepthias sitting on the bottom, as well as all the other corals. There's also things like that I don't want to throw out. So there's a Cyphastria, quite a nice Cyphastria. I'll put that somewhere safe. So I've done about as much as I can handle today. I've got a couple of cups worth of debris, and as I said, little bits of coral and Leptocerus and all sorts of bits and pieces, lots of snail shells and stuff. Now really I should do this again in a week and then a week after that, and we should have a nice clean homogeneous sand. I'm just going to give the tank a bit of a gravel vac just to sort of turn it over so that the sand does look as good as possible. Okay, so I'm finished with the gravel vac. So you can see that the substrate is significantly cleaner than it was previously. I definitely haven't finished a job with this tank. I've let it lapse for quite a few months, and I'll probably have another 2 or 3 goes before it's going to be back to where it needs to be. But I have specifically done the gravel vac before the final tip that we're going to show you today, and you'll see exactly why in a second. The final professional tip that I would give anyone for maintaining a beautiful reef aquarium is to waft your tank. And what I mean by that is get into your tank, and now this is particularly important for certain tanks with a lot of coral, and especially if you've got a sandy bottom and maybe less than ideal water flow. But this tank, even with good water flow, does require it. And wafting it is just wafting your hands over the coral and the rock, so that you free any detritus that is starting to accumulate. Now, the reason why I said before that I wanted to do this after the gravel vac is because the gravel vac typically puts sand on the corals, so I like to waft my hand over them just to help them to get rid of this sand off them. Now it's hard because I'm right-handed. I'm gonna get it from this side here. Here we go. All right, that's better. So I just use my fingers like this, and particularly getting amongst corals which have got plates and crevices in the rock. This halometer makes a big mess too, so I like to waft that off. Here we go. You can see all the detritus that comes out. So wafting your rock work is something that can really help reduce detritus buildup in your tank. And I typically do this every week, every time I've got my hand in the tank. But that definitely benefits the system. And it also allows you to see where you do need more water flow. With the amount of coral and the new coral growth that we've got in this tank, I'm starting to think that I probably do need to upgrade the wave makers. I might change the MP40s to MP60s or something like that, but certainly wafting your hand over the tank is something that you'll find professional aquarists do, and it definitely benefits the tank. So here's a little bonus tip. Cleaning the cabinet as well as the tank makes a big difference to the overall aesthetic of the tank. When you've got water splash on the cabinet and the hood, it can look pretty poor, so definitely cleaning that makes a big difference. But that's our video on professional tips to keep your reef tank looking beautiful. So hopefully you've learned a little something that you can apply to your reef tank at home, and you can keep your reef tank looking absolutely beautiful. So that's it for today's episode of Gallery Aquatica TV. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Happy reefing. That's it for this week's episode of Gallery Aquatica TV. Don't forget to like and comment on all our videos and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned to Gallery Aquatica TV for more exciting episodes to come. I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Happy reefing!